actually curious to hear your bio because I know you've done a lot of different jobs and you've lived in a
I
lot of different
have.
places, which I think is
Yeah.
great and gives you like a rich life experience. So yeah, I'd love take us back. Tell us like what you used to do and how you got into the supplement world.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I actually had started off working in diplomacy primarily and was overseas quite a bit. So studied in France and then lived in Europe, primarily for the better part of my 20s, which was not a bad thing, both for Interpol, just kidding. But no, definitely had a lot of fun living overseas and working there. And then came back here and was working primarily in real estate investment and just kind of graduating in 2007, much like I'm sure a lot of people graduating from college or high school right now are experiencing all sorts of interesting things. So I stayed in the investment world. However, my mom had a lot of health issues. And so kind of being a proponent for that and her own advocate, I started just to become a lot more aware of the naturopathic world. Okay. And as I'm sure a lot of you out there, whether it's your own health or whether it's a family members or something, you wind up seeing so much that you don't want to see that you try to be preventative on the other spectrum. So just, while I was still working in investment sales, was not really digging some of the environment, shall we say, was not quite as supportive as a culture as I was looking for. And
yeah, you shared that with me. I was like very, very upsetting to hear this, like a very male-dominated, sexist environment.
God bless them. It's true. Yeah. I will say the Middle East is sometimes a lot less sexist than Scottsdale, Arizona, but what do you do?
Jeez.
But that given, I just was really a proponent of naturopathic remedies and, the supplement industry, and also being really preventative, because having seen a lot of what my mom went through, was very curious, particularly about gut restoration, because so much of all of her comorbidities that existed were really difficult and kind of stemmed from the gut. So was always my own advocate as well as hers, and then was approached by a colleague who had mentioned Microbiome Labs. And when I heard about their culture and what a phenomenal company they were, I was really curious and was like, well, this is such a left-hand turn. Like, this is nowhere in my career path, not what I was thinking or looking for at all whatsoever. But obviously being a huge proponent of this kind of therapies, I took a look at it, and I came aboard, I want to say almost 22 months ago now, almost 2 years.
Okay,
Coming up on my 2-year anniversary this fall.
Official health company you worked for.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Interesting.
but they've been just phenomenal. Really great company. I mean, we're science-based, and we do a lot of research, and it's amazing how things kind of come full circle. It wasn't what I thought that I would be doing, but I have certainly really enjoyed it. And being able to work with people and, accounts like you, which, you're one of my faves for sure. And getting to just work with patients and know that, you can make that difference, because sometimes you see so many people that go through so many tough times, and you want to be able to change something or do something, and you feel kind of helpless, especially in this COVID crisis. And it's such an advantage to be a part of this and to know this cutting edge research where we can really help people feel better and live better. So it's been the most welcome left turn in my career that I've ever experienced. So I appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah, I want you to talk more about the company in a sec, but I just want to point out, like, I like that they, hired you without like an official health background, you probably more in sales or business or whatever. Yeah. And like, I just kind of want that to be a lesson too, because I know many of our listeners are health coaches or want to be or whatever. And it's not always about having the most knowledge. We can get a little bit like addicted to that. Right. There's so many other skills to bring in, and not everybody has to be like a doctor to have something to add to the conversation. I like that point as well.
I know, right?
So you can be, and I mean, as many people in our community are, they're advocates for natural medicine, and they know so much without any degree. So there are potentially opportunities out there to make a left turn.
It makes my dinner conversation with my husband interesting, that's for sure, because I'll be like, oh, well, did you see this PubMed article? And he, being a practitioner, is typically very surprised at just how much research we do and all
That's
that
awesome.
stuff. So,
Yeah, I know we've interviewed Kieran. I think we just had him on a couple weeks ago, last week or something. I don't know. Time is like, who knows what time is anymore. I'm like, was that a week ago or like
so true.
6 months ago? So people may have heard a bit about his personal history, but people may have heard less about the history of the company of Microbiome Labs. Would you mind just sharing how they got started, how long they've been around, that kind of a thing?
Yeah, and my understanding primarily, Kieran had been working in his own capacity, doing a lot of microbiology research, et cetera, and was asked actually to look at the efficacy of probiotics on the retail market. And when he had done so, realized that it was so low, and not only did majority of them not actually survive digestion and do well for anyone, or make any significant changes, but that, close to 98%, I think they had said, didn't actually even contain what they said they contained, which was pretty scary when you think about it. I wish I could go back to some of the retailers and call back a couple $1,000s in probiotics that I know I've spent that really didn't have that much effect on anything other than the upper GI. So he then started to really start looking in research, and him and Dr. Bain started collaborating and worked with another gentleman in India. And we started going through a lot of research and just figuring out what exactly would survive digestion and what would be most beneficial to people. So Kieran, with his microbiology background, of course, bacteria and its imperative role in our entire system is what's so exciting. And I think, like he said to you last week, there's been what 500,000 publications or something, some ludicrous number just in the last 5 years on the microbiome because of how imperative it is and what cutting edge science it is. So
yeah, it's really
the birth of microbiome.
Yeah, enjoying a long trend, I would say, which is appropriate because there's so much to it. There's all, you and I joke, there's always something new with your company. I didn't even know it was in a capsule. I'm like, oh,
I know.
okay. But I actually love the powder, so I'm okay with it. Yeah, there's so much to learn. There's still like such a growing field. So I think it's great. And I love that you guys have done the research and it makes the products so much more effective. There was a lot of this research. I remember the first time I interviewed him, just because it was sort of like, it was like this like little hot topic in our little functional medicine. Oh, who's this guy? Like, I got to interview him. And I learned so much about, just like you said, how most probiotics aren't what they say. They're dead. They don't really do that much. They don't do what they say. So now I got that all kind of downloaded, but I didn't know it. And it's worth kind of repeating because most people still don't know it. And now you have this whole nice suite of products that really enhances that core product of the probiotic. And I've been super, super happy with the suite of products because in my opinion, as a practitioner, it's not quite enough just to have a probiotic. Some people get fantastic results and some people just need more. Like when I first found it was around when I was so sick with mold, and it wasn't enough for me at the time. But now I've got, all the things coming out every drawer, and I'm just so completely happy with it. So yeah, I maybe we can just kind of start going over one by one some of the most. We don't carry the entire line. Like you guys have a dog probiotic. We haven't gotten into the dog.
You'd be amazed.
I'm sure people would buy it, but we already have like 70 products, and like we're already overdoing it.
Even the cats are raving about it. Yes,
they're putting little paws in the air. That's hilarious. I'll be talking about it more as I'm writing a mold book, so we'll talk about the effect on pets included in there. So there may be a day where we sell the phytospore, but we don't have it yet. Just as a side note, if you do want something like the phytospore, I have like a code so you can order through their shop under my code, so maybe we can provide that in the notes. Okay, so I'll stop sharing that, and I'm going to share perhaps our site. So this is our digestion page, and you can see a lot of the products right away. Let's start with your signature product, the MegaSporeBiotic. Just a little bit about what's in that and some ways to use it, Bethany.
So I like it in general, almost for every single person, and I'll grab Alvana White for you.
And thank you.
But it is by far one of the most amazing products you'll ever experience. I also rave about this in conjunction with our HU58, which I'll tell you about in a second too. But I had Epstein-Barr, which I know, I'm sure you've had a lot of, if I recall some of the questions
I have
from
it too,
some of your clients. Yeah, exactly. And it's just a difficult one to navigate. But essentially, you know, Megaspore actually went through and really helped me reset my entire immune system. So
Oh,
this is
amazing. So that's great use that
exactly.
people may not even think about. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But we're bacillus based, and it is spore based. So, oh wait, let me make sure I do it properly in the Vanna White. But bacillus based spores do actually survive digestion. So that's what's really nice. And the big differential that most people will see between us and other places. So a lot of times you get that upper GI when they're getting, you know, retail stuff that doesn't really survive digestion. You might see some changes just upper, but what you'll really notice is all of your lower GI microbiome starts to really reset. So this is considered our recondition, where we introduce a lot of bacterial diversity. It's really imperative for people. Sometimes it's too much. I know you've had a couple clients as well, where they need to start off really slow, but we do actually have a titration process. You start off with it once every other day and get up to 1 daily, and then go to 2 daily. And that is the best therapeutic dosing. But you'll notice like our science background is actually that it decreases lipopolysaccharides in the bloodstream by about 60% is the differential in the baseline. We have a published study from Texas University, and they actually did basically fed college students like beer and pizza, just a high fat meal. And after that, they went ahead and pulled the lipopolysaccharides in their bloodstream. Not only had the Megaspore users dropped by 42%, but even in healthy 20-year-olds, the others had increased significantly. So the differential was almost 60%. And as I'm sure all of your clients know, because they're much more educated than most, the lipopolysaccharides are precursors to all disease, whether it's cancers or, you know, inflammatory response, etc. So it is one that you will notice. I love you, Bridgit, because you love to talk about poop, but you become a lot more regular, especially for people who have lower GI issues. Like myself, I would get a lot of constipation or whatever other funk is going on, and or that extra little like pooch that people like to call a mom pooch or something that you can't get rid of. A lot of people start to notice. So from a vanity perspective, it's nice.
Haven't heard that one either. Interesting. So we got Epstein-Barr, lipopolysaccharides,
exactly,
and a little pooch and some constipation potentially.
Right. So these are all the fun ones. But primarily for me, the biggest thing that I had noticed is that it did reverse that Epstein-Barr. I managed to do like, or at least I shouldn't say reverse, because obviously we know it just goes dormant. But I managed to do, I think, 55,000 miles between the company and my own personal travel, and was working like 70 to 80 hour weeks through my first 2.5 trimesters, or into my third trimester, and never got sick, which, as you know, with Epstein-Barr, especially when you're traveling and working that much, it usually kind of breaks down your immune system. But instead, I actually was feeling healthier than I had ever felt before.
Awesome.
So it's by far, it's our flagship, and it's my favorite for sure. So.
Yeah, you know, I kind of got my own lesson. If you heard on the last one, that I really wasn't taking it every day, because I was like, my digestion's good. But it doesn't mean that I don't have other potential like pitfalls, right? It's not just, are you moving your bowels? Are you digesting your food? Like there's other factors, and like what 70-80% of your immune system is in your gut, and now it's COVID, or if you have Epstein-Barr or what have you. So yeah,
especially right now, you know, I mean, my primary concern with that, with a lot of us being in quarantine, you know, you're not having that microbial exchange with your friends, etc. And so for your immune system, as soon as we get into, you know, the fall season, our bacterial diversity is going to be one of the few saviors that you have to really make sure that everything is built up, because our natural process of attaining those. I mean, I was literally out with the baby this morning at 6 a.m. and just letting her dig in the grass, because you really want to get as much exposure and microbial bacterial diversity that you can. So
yeah.
nice.
KB is asking about the titration schedule. We do have it here on our site under directions. However, I'm a little bit more, well, I'm similar to you, but I can said even start with a half cap potentially, skip a day, you know, or this is kind of written poorly, but
and
you know,
it's written on the bottle as well now, Bridgit.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that. Oh yeah, week 1. Take one every, oh, look at you, one every other day, then one a day. All you have to do is read the bottle, I guess. Yeah, that's awesome. And occasionally there are people who can't even take one every other day. Occasionally. I think it's pretty rare. And it's frankly because you're so dysbiotic that you're having die-off from introducing. So the bacillus strain she mentioned briefly, another thing that's incredible about them is they go in and direct traffic, basically like starving unfriendly bacteria, feeding friendly bacteria, making new strains. So it's a different paradigm than what we were taught, like, oh, you just put in bacteria. Most of those things don't even work. They're dead. So really we're directing bacteria here. So if you can get some die off, but I think it's pretty rare, you know. I know Kieran can take a lot. I've always been able to take a lot. I took 4 just yesterday, like all at once.
Right. I know. It's nice. And you know, the bacillus spores, particularly our HU58, also has what's called quorum sensing. So it will go in, and it's one of the few bacteria that actually polices other bacteria. So it will go in and kill off any bad bacteria or create an unhospitable environment for that bacteria. And so it actually balances things, because as you know, we used to kind of chase bacteria, or that was a lot of the science. But in this sense, you know, you can't overtake it. It's the same thing, like, you know, when I'm traveling or something, I'll take like 4 to 6 a day. Or whenever I've gotten food poisoning, I will pound IgG and Megaspore. And my husband was like amazed. He didn't believe me once. And I just took everything, and I was golden within like 4 hours. He, on the other hand, was not.
Oh, he didn't do it. He's a doubter. So you've mentioned this HU58 strain. So I'm showing the bottle here. This must, oh yeah, this is a different part of the bottle than the titration. Tell us about this strain.
So it is our proprietary blend. We're known for it in particular. I like it. We also have it by itself. So if someone is a little bit more sensitive, like you said, and they're not quite withstanding a full capsule of Megaspore, we do sometimes start with just the HU58. So this is our very unique blend, and it helps in particular with that quorum sensing. And it's just the fastest way to actually turn around and get people's, you know, gut back into a proper adjustment. Because a lot of times if you're chasing bacteria, as I know some practitioners have tried to say, oh, well, let me do a GI test and look at this and look at that, which we could talk about testing later. But it will go ahead and balance everything else out. So we do sell it individually. That's what I utilize in conjunction to battle the Epstein-Barr with the Megaspore, because this actually has 10 billion CFU, whereas the Megaspore only has 4 billion CFU. So I take them both together, and that's where I feel like. So to
recap, you feel that strain in particular will help like reset dysbiosis. Okay,
it is. It's kind of our magic. Yes.
We don't have. I probably don't talk about it enough, to be honest. It's not as much part of my protocol. So, but I'm still learning all the time too.
Yeah. Well, and you know what's interesting about it? We just released a study. I think I sent it to you a couple weeks ago. Maybe it was, who knows? We're in Groundhog Day, but it was like a month or 2 ago. And it actually will help with liver protection even more than milk thistle.
Oh, really? Look at all these tidbits you're giving
and
me.
We have a ton of HE patients that'll lower ammonia levels. It has a lot of really interesting factors. Also, all of my psoriasis patients and friends and family members swear by it. We've had a ton of reversals for those. So it's kind of it's our magic sauce, as I like to say. So I literally won't go anywhere without it, especially if I'm traveling, etc. But for me to have been, you know, I have not been sick, touch wood, in like since I started working for the company. So not to mention all of the, you know, antioxidant factors that it has.
They just load you guys up on supplements and then work you like dogs. I know what's going on over there.
So true.
That's awesome. Well, I want to talk about, because you mentioned a little bit about like food poisoning and diarrhea. So I wanted to talk about Mega IgG 2000. Let me go show that.
Yes.
Okay. This, to me, I mean, it has a lot of uses we'll get into, but one of them is definitely diarrhea, whether it's acute, like you said, which, you know, I haven't used it as much for, or chronic. So kind of IBS-D, so a IBS pattern that kind of tends towards diarrhea. I just had a client with this the other day, and he actually had recently started taking colostrum from another brand. Colostrum has some same like immunoglobulins as the Mega IgG 2000, and I'm like, great, well, you know, and it's helping him. I'm like, well, finish that because I know this product better, and I want it in conjunction with the other, you know, things you're doing. It's helping him a lot, which is fantastic. I mean, this is like, poor guy's been dealing with it like 30 years, so. So it can be, I just warn, it can be a little constipating. I don't think it's in a bad way. I think it's just, my explanation is like, one reason you have loose stool is your body's like ejecting, you know, this inflammation and this infection inside of you. So as that starts to be taken care of by the immunoglobulins in here, it just kind of slows things down. And now you're not at your like typical pace anymore. So things can feel like a little slower, in which case I always say to take it with an earlier meal in the day. Like if you eat breakfast, take it with breakfast, or go down to 2 instead of 4. So those are some of the things I say for it, but we definitely use it to mop up infection, like you talked about with a short-term gut thing or longer-term gut things. It's great for leaky gut. It's great for what else? What else is on the list?
It's really great even for allergy season, and or like we have a neighbor doing some construction. So I had a ton of dust and extra stuff here yesterday, and I started to notice I was getting extra, you know, like inflamed and kind of funky and itchy. So it acts as kind of a selective charcoal, which is what I love, because a lot of times, you know, you don't want to take activated charcoal and soak up everything that you consume, because you still need the nutrients and all of these things. So it's incredibly protective, but it also has that anti-inflammatory property that you discussed, where, you know, it kind of calms things down. So anytime I have somebody who's super, they come in and they have a list of like 40 allergies, I'm going to say, okay, automatically, let's get started on IgG, just to kind of soothe things over a little bit, especially if they're experiencing any die-off. It basically, I like, the best term, I guess, is selective charcoal, because it helps you pass those things through. And as long as you stay really hydrated, then the motility is still there. But like you said, it also does, it does help if you do have some kind of diarrhea or, you know, major dysbiotic offset, that in conjunction with our Restore Flora. And the HU58 for infections, I was going to say, the MegaSpore always helps, but HU58, anytime I have someone with like chronic tonsillitis or something like that, is really phenomenal for those infections.
Interesting. Okay, I'm gonna have to try it for that. You're selling me on it. And so you said for like allergies or stuff in the air, and kind of like a binder. So yeah, it's a binder of biological things. So
correct,
can be used like for mold. I think you could. I was definitely taking this during my COVID. I still never got told I had COVID. I still think I'm like to the grave. To the grave, I'm gonna say COVID. I was doing everything. And it started in my gut. It started in my gut and chilly feeling. So, you know, I already knew that COVID could go in the gut from talking to Kieran and doing the research. So I was definitely hitting this. And, you know, like that virus can just be right in there in the lining, messing things up, inflaming things.
As you know, we've actually also added as an add-on to our Biome Effect stool test, where you can, you know, actually delineate if you've had COVID in your gut as well.
Right. Oh, I should do that, because I just was at the doctor the other day, and I'm like, could I get like a blood draw for, you know, COVID? And she's like, it's only 50% accurate. And I'm like,
the antibody test though is not bad, but I like the gut one, because then, you know, if it's been in the DNA, you know, you have that actual focal point, and you can say, okay, we know it originated there, and that way, you know, you have a little bit more of a referential point. So.
Oh, that's true. I should run the gut one, and there's also one with a different lab we use. Okay, good to know. And just as an aside, or we can move on to this product, is if you're having trouble with motility, this MegaGuard is an amazing motility product. It's an amazing product all around that I think doesn't get enough attention. Like you have your favorites. I got my, I
Yes,
love
it's true.
Guard. I think it's very
I
powerful.
do love it. It's
Yeah.
true. It's by far, and it's made a big difference for me. I wasn't utilizing it as much for some reason. I think, like you said, you have your favorites. And I've really become a bigger fan of it, particularly anytime, I'm going to sound really awful right now, but if you're ever having a cheat meal, like Karen will say too, if you take an extra 1 or 2, or if you're having a hard time with any kind of digestive thing, but also just for any of our H. pylori patients, or I've converted a lot of people off of PPIs. Any acid reflux. And we've even had a couple patients who had like major esophageal issues come back and say it's the first time that they've been, you know, feeling great in a long time. So it's by far, I think you're right though, it's under recognized. So
yeah, kind of the label though, you know, label uses are H. pylori, balancing stomach acid, and then it says normal digestion. So I would add to that bile movement, which is very important for detox, and it can be important for like weight loss and cellulite, preventing constipation and moving the bowels. So for instance, many people listening have some brain inflammation from mold or other toxins. Are you okay?
Yes,
okay, you're just looking at
my landscaper's just pulled in, so I was like,
you're like, oh, it's gonna get noisy. I think it actually, you know, when your brain isn't working, it's not going to talk to your gut, right? And then you're not going to get correct motility. So it helps for motility. It can help, like even if so now I'm do fairly well, but if I do also, like if I'm off, I'm not sleeping enough, I'm eating the wrong things, I can start to get into some nausea because my brain is getting more inflamed and now my gut's getting off. So I'll take this for like nausea, like things kind of sitting in your stomach, things just not moving through your stomach fast enough. I think that's another.
I'm glad you mentioned the nausea too. I don't know if I told you, Bridget, but during my pregnancy, it was by far my favorite. So you would think I would remember it more often.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, because particularly with, you know, how sometimes if I'm overtired or you're traveling too much, it's phenomenal just with mild nausea. And I was very, very fortunate because I'm normally very easily nauseated. But throughout my pregnancy had little to no problem. And I would utilize it anytime I started to, and it would subside within like 20 minutes. So it's really
that's
great.
such a great tip. Yeah. And sometimes people get constipated when they're pregnant as well. Great for, eating at a restaurant, traveling when you're just off, or I give it to everyone in their H. pylori protocol, every single person. And I've already seen it reduce H. pylori. So that's awesome. Let's see.
The ginger root, you just really notice, like I said, for anytime something's just not settling well, I love taking it because it's like, okay, here we go. You need to feel significantly better pretty quickly thereafter.
Nice. Well, next, let's talk about the MegaMucosa. Let's see if I can find it here.
I have one up here if you need.
Yeah, this is a powder. It doesn't taste amazing because it has the immunoglobulins in it that just aren't naturally tasty. So some people are like, why is this so flavored? Well, it's, you know, kind of to cover up the nastiness, but you can see like 9 5-star reviews, 1 4-star review. You know, people love this product. I love this product. It's incredibly soothing. I was joking on the last call, I love to drink tea, but it's not good for your mucosa. So I just have like both at the same time. But now I'm taking it every day because I'm trying to be better now about my own gut protocol. And, you know, really, I haven't quite finished some things from mold. So you just crank it down. You know, once you get used to it, I don't mind the taste now. Or you can mix in the MegaPre, like Karen said. I don't have that tub here, but that's another really great product that I'm really like using and recommending more regularly. I think it just takes some getting to know things,
Absolutely.
But I won't get off track. Do you want to make any comments about the MegaMucosa?
I do. It's by far one of my favorites. So it has the same immunoglobulins that we spoke about, just not the same level. So it does really help calm down that inflammation. So anytime you're feeling that way, or if I have somebody who's having a hard time tolerating the MegaSpore, we might start with the MegaMucosa. But those amino acids actually rebuild 95% of the mucin layer. So you'll really start noticing the effects of metabolic endotoxemia or leaky gut really start subsiding. So for me, who I have a joint issue, and I tend to dislocate a lot. So anytime there's an inflammatory process, I'm like, oh my gosh, and I'll realize I haven't had MegaMucosa, you know, in a while, or I've been obviously eating something bad. I will take some, and in all honesty, a big thing is any kind of fibromyalgia or joint pain. I do get a lot of patients that come back to us and say, this, I felt so much better as soon as I started taking this regularly. So that's one really nice thing about it. I like to mix. I thought it was so funny that you said you don't like it and you like the pre better, because I don't like the pre.
Oh, how funny.
So I mix the two, and then, you know, the supplement Calm, the calcium magnesium. So I mix the three of those together, and then I typically add some of my like greens or whatever. And that actually tastes really good because it's like minty, and it kind of subdues the sweetness of the MegaPre and the MegaMucosa. But they are, I really, in that way, I enjoy it a little bit longer. But they're really good. I definitely do better with the MegaMucosa than the Pre though. So.
How funny. Yeah, we're all different. So yeah, it's funny you said that. I only brought over your products, but we sell magnesium powder and a greens powder. And you can definitely kind of like layer stuff on. I actually have our recipe blogger working on some recipes with the magnesium, because it's kind of sweet, our magnesium. And you know, when healthy people are eating, they generally don't want something super sweet. They're not used to that anymore. So we're trying to, you know, just show some ways that you can mess around with stuff. I also, one tip that I do, and I need to start doing this again, is just, you know, especially now that it's summer, such a great idea. I'll just in the morning make a greens powder, make a magnesium, make a like, and then I have like 4 glasses in the fridge, and then I just go in and get them throughout the day.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that way I get them
a lot.
all in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get super hydrated. You know, it only takes like 2 minutes to stir them all up, and then they're cold. So that's another idea. You know, I like getting stuff in powder form. It's just a slight bit more work to, you know, stir it and make it right. It's really minimal work, but sometimes just that small barrier can make you like not do it. So whatever's going to make you do it, if it's mixing some stuff up together in the morning into your own concoction, or, you know, knowing, okay, every day, I know Kieran said after lunch he makes his shaker bottle. So whatever's going to trigger you to do it is fantastic. So
it's true. And I really like to mix them. So anytime if I notice, like I said, there's extra like dust, or, you know, in Arizona, we get that nice layer of just cloud and funk, or wherever whatever city you may be living in. And a lot of times I'll just, you know, take that extra dose of MegaMucosa and or MegaSpore throughout the day just to feel a little bit better. And I have noticed when I start to, you know, you feel like your immune system gets compromised, those two and the HU58 and the IgG are kind of my go-to. I know it's hard to choose, but that's definitely my go-to.
And everybody's going to find their own favorites, you know, so you know, you don't have to try everything at once, but you can kind of add it in. I do want to show off here that you can buy things in for subscription now, almost all the products. So it makes it cheaper, 10% less. And you get, if you do it by August 2nd, you get a bunch of bonuses with us. You get 6 coaching sessions, a little training, you get access to some of our resources, normally only for private clients. And then we were giving 10% to charity, and then you guys matched it, which was incredible. So
I loved that. I jumped up and down when Kieran said that. So that's cute. Part of why I love working with this company, because they really like to give back. So
yeah, that's so great. So I'm super excited for that. And then, you know, just try it. Like, you can cancel at any time, but like for me, I really want to be making sure I take this every day. So if you know it's coming every 30 days, guess what? You got to take it. So it kind of like forces you to stay on track, and then just leave them on the counter or do what you need to do so it's like obvious. Put a reminder in your phone, whatever helps you. So almost all these products now are.
Well, I'll tell you, Bridgit, how I have on my card for Microbiome Labs, it actually has my personal cell phone number. So anytime I've been with clients that aren't familiar with our products or anything like that, and I'm chatting with a practitioner, I'll say, I tell you what, this is my personal number, you know, buy this, go ahead and buy things now. If you're not happy with it in 8 weeks after you've utilized the product, and go ahead and call me anytime, and I will pick up, and I'll either, you know, refund you, or I'll figure something out, which is not usually our policy, but I just put my name behind it. And
Oh,
in,
wow.
you know, the last almost 2 years now of trade shows, I've never had anyone call. And so I kind of
Yeah,
stand
we
by
have
that.
30-day policy, you know, full refund with us. So, you know, I would say the only thing that is going to be a concern, so to speak, is just wherever you're at with your body depends like what you're ready for. So this MegaSpre is another example. It's a fiber that's meant to be non-bloating, you know, non-irritating, but sometimes, frankly, your gut's so screwed up that adding any fiber is a little like, so you just maybe need to start with like a quarter scoop, similar to the MegaSporeBiotic. Start with a smaller dose, take it throughout the day, like we talked about on the last webinar, and just get used to it. So I even noticed it a little bloating for me when I started, and now it's like, it's nothing. It's nothing at all noticeable. So I think
I did as well. And sometimes I tell,
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh,
I tell clients to take it at night before they go to bed, so that maybe you just torture your significant other rather than, you know, as you're adjusting to it, rather than throughout your day. So,
yeah, if you don't want to be bloated all day. No, I think that can work. Yeah, and I only have one review yet, but this person will have been taking it 3 days, but already noticing some better like bulk of her stool and frequency of bowel movements. So that's already good, you know, even just 3 days. So she didn't say any side effects for her. So I think it's really important. Can you tell us, you know, we need to find this in writing somewhere, like how it's some drastic number that it increases.
It's 1,000%. So
okay, we need to get your study of that. So it increases, how can you say, the quantity of growth of the friendly bacteria, or how would you say it?
Yeah, we usually say just it increases your fructooligosaccharides by 1,000% within 6 weeks of use.
Wow.
And I mean, that's, you know, kind of the technical versions, but you will notice in general, like she said, you know, just a lot better movements. And I don't know, I feel like sometimes I get more energy just when you have that extra fiber. Maybe it's in my brain, but and one thing I wanted to mention too, because I know you do a lot of hormone focus, even though we're doing more DIY today, is, I think I told you, you've seen my child all over the place sometimes when we're chatting. But you know, the nice thing about the spores and resetting your gut is it really resets your endocrine system, and helps a lot with hormone balancing and getting you out of inflammation. So for any of your people who are looking like for fertility or to get pregnant, you know, our total gut restoration protocol, which we're going over here, which is the MegaPre, the MegaMucosa, and the MegaSpore, is really, really phenomenal for that, for women trying to get pregnant. That in conjunction with our K27. I think my husband and I had gone like 10 months after his reversal, and then we were on products, I want to say 6 weeks, and I was pregnant. So it was pretty impressive. So
yeah, the gut and the hormones are so like
they're so closely linked. Yeah, it's true.
So you know, we don't have that as much in our community now, but if you're like, oh, what did she say? Like, we, you know, reach out to us and we can go tighten up that protocol for you and tell you more about it for sure. What was I just gonna mention to you? Oh yeah, so you said, is it in your head? And actually, one thing I want to point out is when you take fiber and make short chain fatty acids, which are completely healing for your gut barrier and your brain barrier. So fiber is a really actual important thing for your brain. I've been thinking about kind of making a mold protocol, and you know, your gut barrier is definitely going to be compromised. Your brain barrier is going to be too. So getting this fiber in is so important. I was just talking about that client with loose stool, and he, you know, like many people, went to a less diverse diet, but he's learning and growing to increase his diet, taking the pre-fiber. It's really working for him. So sometimes that, you know, I get why we want to do less because food's irritating us and that kind of a thing, but ultimately we want more fiber, more diversity, you know, more strains. So these are some products that can get you there. Again, you can, once you get used to it, you take a scoop a day, super easy. I have clients who are like, can I take it twice? Because I love it so much. So I think this one tastes really nice. Oh, and then Kieran's tip was give it to your kids, which I thought was a phenomenal tip. because they don't need enough
Absolutely.
fiber,
They don't,
yeah.
it's so hard. I actually, I'll mix it into my daughter's little, food purees, etc.
Oh, good idea.
And as well as some Megaspore. And actually even the IgG, anytime we've introduced a new food, that there's some kind of allergic response, I'll always do the IgG, and like, within usually 10 to 20 minutes, you'll see any kind of hives or anything start to disappear, or any kind of reaction. So that's
Wow, what a great tip. Yeah, my son is starting to get like a little eczema by his nose. He's like, oh, it's acne. I'm like, no, it's not. And so I've got him starting on this, and then I'm going to have him like empty out some of the Megaspore because he still won't take a capsule. But yeah, so a lot of these liquids you have are just so great for kids. So again, you can subscribe. If for some reason you don't want to, you can put it on hold. If you're having, money issues, you can put it on hold, or whatever, you're traveling, you don't want to get it 1 month. But it's a great idea to just, build it into your routine. That's what, I'm doing, and Bethany's doing, and like, I think if you occasionally may balk at the price, but once it's like in your routine, you're going to love it. It's just going to keep you top of your game. And again, you're going to save money.
It's true. And it's almost preventative in a lot of ways. Because same thing at first, I'm like, oh my goodness, how much would we spend on this or that? But what it comes down to is how much you actually wind up spending, trying to reverse some of the problems that you see. Whether you get into some psoriasis or some other funk, or you're trying to do hormone balancing because you haven't been eating properly. But when you start to actually take really good care of your system, you don't have those other issues where, you have a $2,000 deductible and no copay because you have to do some kind of testing or whatever it might be. So sometimes people are a little concerned, but I'm like, listen, you really do actually, you're being preventative in the long run, which is kind of nice. So.
Yeah, well, I'll just take this last question and then we'll wrap up. Pauline was asking about joint pain. You did kind of mention joint pain before. What were you saying? Which for joint pain? What product did you say you use for joint pain?
So the MegaMucosa is the one that I really like.
Okay.
And that's because it just really helps reseal that epithelial layer. And so the mucin synthesis is 95% in the study that we have that's in conjunction with it. But you notice that you really kind of, the inflammation goes down because of the IgG in it. And then the amino acids really just rebuild that mucin layer. So you wind up, at least for myself, and I've had a lot of other people come back and say it, they really notice that they're feeling a lot less inflamed and also less achy. Which I really like. So anytime I'm like, oh, I'm kind of achy, and I'm like, wait, when's the last time I had MegaMucosa? And then
oh, how interesting. How interesting. We all have our little tells, right? Like I've had some like things I shouldn't have eaten recently, and like I'm just like more brain foggy, and I'm like, that's that brain inflammation is found its way back. Pauline also asked about like, I think she's saying if you can like bend your pinky finger back, is that a sign of arthritis? I don't know if you mean bend like it got stiff or it's hyperflexible. Hyperflexible can be, I don't know totally how to pronounce this, but Ehlers-Danlos. It's like
I'm so glad you guys just said that. So I actually have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
Ehlers-Danlos, okay.
Yeah, so you can dislocate easily. And they're finding it's actually a lot more common than people think. There's 3 different types. And it's very interesting, but because of Ehlers-Danlos, you tend to get a lot of motility and joint pain. So like my ankles will dislocate and things like that. And that's why I do like the MegaMucosa so much, because my joint pain really subsides with it. So that's what's been nice. And if you don't mind me saying, where'd my Mega Omega go? I think I took it downstairs. Our Mega Omega is phenomenal. So I've definitely noticed a difference with that one. It's not your average, oil. It really is phenomenal as far as the inflammatory process and response. So that's a big one for me as well.
Awesome. Yeah. So I don't know if that's what you meant, Pauline. There is another syndrome. It doesn't happen so much in the pinky, but it's kind of called like a trigger finger, where your tendons will kind of curl your finger up. And that's usually from like overuse, kind of the joint, like there's just sort of damage to I remember that from being an acupuncturist. Sometimes your finger gets kind of stuck like this. But that's, it's treatable too. And yeah, we're talking about a lot of these things you could say are like background or not direct, but really when you give your body the nutrients to, you know, nourish the joints, you know, protect the brain, like all these things, like a lot of that comes from the gut and nutrient absorption through the gut, antioxidant production in the gut. So when you get all those things dialed in, things just work better.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
I hope I'm not giving you too much background noise.
No, I can tell you're thinking about it. No, it's totally fine. Well, thank you so much for your time, Bethany. And, I'll put in the notes here the digestion page of our shop. We've got everything we talked about, and again, everything on subscription. As long as you get signed up by the end of the month, we'll be included in 6 calls with me, and I think we'll probably have some other fun bonuses, and you'll know like you're giving 20% of your purchase to a great charity that helps with environment, which is another passion of mine, right? We can talk about our internal environment, but it's being affected by our external environment more and more with you know, the way things are going. So it's a great organization that helps protect some of our most vulnerable people who are living in some of the most polluted places. So I think it's a great organization. You can know that you're helping us meet our goals to help them.
Well, I love that you're doing that as well. That's awesome. I mean, it's great for, I'm a strong believer in energy on all facets. So, you know, to do that for the community and also to take care of your body at the same time is, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, so you're sort of helping yourself out. And, you know, some people literally can't afford these supplements at all. They're losing their jobs. They're not affording their rent. So you're kind of like giving back every time you do that. So thanks to everyone here. Yeah, let us know if any questions you want to ask later. But yeah, thanks, Bethany, for your time. It was super fun. We'll have to do it again.
Super fun. Okay, sounds good. Thank you so
bye,
much,
everybody.
Bridget. Appreciate it. Bye, guys.